First question I'd ask is, why are you the person to tackle this problem? And so I'd ask this question because, as we've discussed many times on this podcast, the founder is the primary reason for an early stage investment. Many of the investments we studied, again, like a16z with Okta, Slack, Instagram, they were all heavily geared towards the founder, especially in instances like Instagram and Slack where they were pivots. Those are very founder reliant investments because at the end of the day, the product didn't even matter. So at the early stage, it's really important to focus on the founder. But in my opinion, it's not just enough to, be a Stanford grad or work at Google and therefore command an investment because you're just smart and accomplished and look good on paper. As an investor, I wouldn't care how much you know in general. I care about how much you know about this industry you're pursuing. And one advantage companies have over another, especially at the startup level, is just their obsession and their just bank of knowledge. And so the founder I'm investing in has to have just deep knowledge about the market, about the incumbents, about the customers they're pursuing, and frankly, just why they can disrupt the industry. Current a16z partner Chris Dixon has a good quote that personifies this concept, which he calls founder market fit. He once said, quote, "Founders have to choose a market long before they have an idea whether they will reach product market fit. In my opinion, the best predictor of success is whether there is what David Lee calls founder market fit. Founder market fit means the founders have a deep understanding of the market they are entering and are people who personify their product, business, and ultimately their company." And I really like that last sentence. He says, people who personify their product, business, and ultimately their company. I like that a lot because the founder is going to be the face of the company. When you see Steve Jobs, you think of smartphones. When you see Elon Musk, you think of space travel. Like that wasn't an accident. That happened because they worked in their respective industries for decades before ultimately reaching that pinnacle of just perfect product market fit and worldwide adoption. And so in a winner take all market, as many venture-backed startups compete in, the founder has to have a distinct advantage as to why they're the person to tackle this problem. Like I touched on earlier, maybe they're like a Teal fellow and just naturally a genius, and that's great for sure, but they still have to have an obsession with their craft. Like when Palmer Luckey created the Oculus and became the first successful VR company after decades of failed companies trying. I mean, he was tinkering around with VR since he was a teenager, and he was obsessed with it, and he was adamant that he would be the one to make a successful VR company. Dozens, if not hundreds of companies failed in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, but his just obsession with it, and also him being just a natural born genius, was essentially why that company was successful. And so, speaking of Palmer Luckey, this concept of really knowing the industry you're building in is especially present in hard tech companies like a16z pack companies, Anduril and Hadrian. And so current a16z partner and leader of a16's American dynamism movement, essentially investing in companies that are good for America and keep America as a leader of the world, progressing, so on and so forth. Leader of that movement within a16z is partner Catherine Boyle. And so she once said the following regarding founders knowing the industry they're building in and the importance of it. She said, quote, "Someone who came to the problem just knowing all of the intricacies of it. And all the founders of Anduril had that knowledge and expertise of here's how you have to really push the business model in order to build. You can make the same case that SpaceX had that intense knowledge of not only the technology and what needed to happen, but also how to work with the government. I think what we've noticed is that there just has to be a true understanding of the sector and what needs to change. And then a lot of evangelism of what needs to change, as you probably saw with someone like Chris Power when he was talking about Hadrian. These are the founders that are truly evangelizing, oftentimes, business model change or technological change, that are constantly talking about it because they are at the forefront of this change. And so this goes into the second point of this question of, why are you the person to tackle this problem? Not only do they have to know the industry to an extreme degree, like we just talked about, and be the face of the company, be that Steve Jobs, be that Elon Musk figure to that movement of smartphones or the movement of space travel, but they have to evangelize others to their solution. This concept is especially true in hard tech companies where there are a lot of regulatory and R&D hurdles before you can even sell to your first customer. It can take years before a sale. So the challenge here is not only building the product that solves the problem, but in the case of selling to the government, you have to convince them why they need to diversify their defense spending and spend less on their 70-year partnership, 100-year partnership, whatever it is, with Lockheed Martin, and more money on this disruptive upstart, Anduril, for example. But how Anduril's gone about that, trying to make that drastic change for the government, is Anduril has become the face of the defense tech movement, through their revolutionary technology combined with just a loud, outspoken frustration with the inefficiency of the American defense program. Yeah, it's completely upended the defense tech industry, which went from untouchable in venture capital to a very hot space in less than a few years. I mean, if you look at Twitter or anything today, a lot of people, a lot of really smart people are pushing hard tech, deep tech companies, really trying to get that off the ground because we're seeing the crack. We saw with Anduril that it is possible to disrupt these very entrenched incumbents that work with the government. And it's because people like Palmer Luckey and Trey Stevens, were really the ones to tackle this problem. And it's because they evangelized this movement about, American dynamism and deep tech and hard tech and the rewards that come with it and really impacting your country and everyone who lives within it. Not just another consumer app, but like really something important to people like defense tech and making that cheaper and more efficient, saving taxpayers a lot of money. So obviously that's a virtuous thing, but it wasn't a few years ago. VCs did not want to touch defense tech. But since the Anduril was able to prove what can be done, it inspired a lot of founders to follow them, and they became the head of this movement because they were able to tackle this really challenging problem. And so the final point about this question, which ties perfectly of what we just talked about, is that every founder needs to have some type of superpower. Frankly, I could be wrong. Please prove me wrong if someone can. I always like to learn. But this is where I think a technical founder can struggle. Being a 100x engineer, being a remarkable technical founder is certainly a superpower. But, as the face of the company, you have to be excellent at selling the vision and evangelizing the mission of the company. Apple would be nothing without Woz building the product and being that masterful technical co-founder. But Apple would be nothing without just Steve Jobs being the person to evangelize this movement around beautifully designed hardware. I'm not going to argue who is more important, Steve Jobs or Woz, but I'm just saying if you want to have this extreme movement for your company, you need someone like a Steve Jobs who can just, again, evangelize this movement, speak to the brand in a beautiful way that just incites so many positive feelings in potential customers and users. And I also think the engineering aspects are easier to supplement. You can have a lot of engineers working on the problem, helping one another, but superpowers around branding are very valuable and certainly something I look for in founders because that storytelling ability and ability to connect to users is just so rare, and when done right is just so impactful. So I'd sort of lean towards that as a superpower in a founding team, rather than just incredible engineers. Incredible engineers are great, but I need someone who's going to be the face of that company and can really drive it to consumers' minds and be the company in that space. And so basically I asked this question again, why are you the person to tackle this problem? Because typically hundreds or thousands of startups have either tried, are actively trying, or will try the problem this founder is presenting. So if that's the case, then there's a clear market, there's a clear value proposition for that product or that company. That's not a question. What is a question is, why is this founder the one who can personify their business with an exceptional vision and evangelize the world to join them in the mission? Now, that ability is a true superpower, and one I suspect is possible to see through an expertly crafted pitch. We talked about this before. Don Valentine of Sequoia was very big on this, of being able to see the founder's vision exude through an expertly crafted pitch. And I don't mean an expertly rehearsed pitch. I mean a pitch that just exudes ability, confidence, and just an incredible vision of what the new world they're building looks like after releasing their product, and why it's beautiful for users. So again, that was question one. Why are you the person to tackle this problem?